Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are jumping into a really fascinating and unique stack of source material.
Hmm.
We've got a blend of detailed astrological readings and this incredible symbolic narrative, all from Tarot by High C, and it's all focused on the energetic roadmap for November 25th, 2025.
It's so much more than just a forecast, though. It's almost like a manual for a psychological
A
adjustment.
manual, yeah.
Yeah, the celestial alignment's giving you the tools, and then the StoryScope narrative gives you the language for how to actually use them.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the actionable steps,
Hmm.
the things you can actually do to stop feeling so, vague and start being decisive.
Right.
If you felt like you've been building on sand, or if you're chasing a dream that just keeps slipping out of focus, this is your roadmap.
It is. The core focus, really, across all the sources is integrity. But it's defined here as where your internal conviction perfectly aligns with your external reality. We're looking at where we might have unintentionally handed over our power, our authority, and showing you how to use these energies to build something solid, something that's protected.
It feels like it's time to move from wishing to doing.
And from fantasy to foundation.
I love that.
Oh,
Let's jump right in. Okay, so the sources immediately give us this window of opportunity on the 25th. They call it a brief morning portal.
mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating because it speaks directly to that emotional residue we all carry around. It suggests old patterns can be released without all the drama.
Right, just allowed to drift away like smoke.
Drift away like smoke. What does that actually mean, though, in practice?
Well, that phrase is key. It's a call to observe the emotional reaction, the insecurity, the old wound, but not to engage with it.
Don't grab onto it.
Exactly. If you try to grab smoke, what happens? You just grasp at air. So the practice here is non-engagement. You acknowledge the feeling, you visualize it detaching, and you let it move past you without trying to fix it right then and there.
And we really need that clean slate because the practical challenges for the day are, well, they're intense. A lot of insecurities coming to the surface in relationships or finances.
The warnings are pretty specific. Feelings of being ignored or dismissed are likely to pop up, and miscommunications that are rooted in what the sources call little blind spots.
Little blind spots that have turned into bigger mix-ups.
Yes, which means we're probably encountering the amplified consequences of small details we decided to ignore a few weeks back.
So the foundation for the day is basically use a cooler head. The source says to think rather than react.
Huh.
But, if you're already feeling dismissed, how do you manage that impulse to defend yourself?
And that's the tension, right? That's what we have to navigate. The advice is to use minor tweaks, not these huge overhauls.
A minor tweak.
Yeah, a minor tweak is subtle. It's focused on adjusting your own behavior, your own expectations, not demanding a massive change from someone else. It's the difference between asking, hey, can we just clarify this one line item on the budget versus declaring we have to completely restructure our entire relationship.
Right.
That minor tweak is the best way to protect the bonds you already have, especially if you focus on shared goals. It's a real call for teamwork.
And this need for restraint, it seems directly linked to this huge background tension we have to talk about. Jupiter square Eris.
Oh, this is critical context for everyone. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, of belief. It just magnifies everything it touches.
And Eris.
Eris, named for the goddess of discord, is all about disruption, pushing uncomfortable truths into the spotlight.
Yeah.
So when they square off, the controversy just gets magnified.
So it's not just a disagreement anymore. It's a debate at high decibel levels.
Exactly. High decibel levels where everyone is absolutely convinced they are right. Righteous, even.
And that encourages defensiveness, protection.
Yeah. Impulsive actions, yeah. Because Jupiter just inflates the whole conflict. And this square has been active for a while, since late October. It was exact on November 2nd, and it's still strong through early December.
So knowing this is the backdrop, it explains why the advice is to use a cooler head. It's a necessity, not just a nice idea.
You have to refuse to let Jupiter-Eris turn a minor misunderstanding into a world war.
That high decibel background noise makes the morning's specific alignments. They sound like a gift. They seem to offer the exact psychological tools to keep that cooler head.
They absolutely do. The day starts with the Aquarius moon conjunct Pluto. Now that sounds heavy, right?
Oh.
Pluto is deep power transformation.
Yeah, intense.
But because it's in Aquarius, the sign of objectivity and perspective, it shifts the focus outward.
So instead of being dragged down into our own emotional drama, what does this let us do?
It gives you the ability to observe your own transformation, your confusion, your past, from an objective distance.
Oh.
Think of it like watching a really intense movie that you start in, but now you're sitting in the audience, critiquing the acting. You see the pattern, you see the pain, but you're not submerged in it anymore.
It's detachment, but in the service of self-mastery.
That's it.
Which sounds like the perfect antidote to that Jupiter-Eris defensiveness. If I can detach from my own drama, I'm way less likely to react to someone else's.
Precisely. And that detachment gets support almost immediately from the Aquarius moon sextile the sun. This brings in harmony.
Okay, so how does that harmony actually show up, like, practically?
The sextile just creates a flow between your individual expression, that's the sun, and your collective awareness, the Aquarius moon.
So my personal truth connects to a bigger picture.
Yes, to a universal understanding or a group goal. You move from a purely self-protective stance, my security, to realizing how your well-being contributes to the groups. It becomes our security.
Got it. So if we use that Moon-Pluto detachment to see our own blind spots, we can then use the Moon-Sun harmony to realize that the minor tweaks we make aren't just for us.
They brighten the shared future. The morning aspects literally give us the structure we need to pull off the day's main task.
Okay, so we've covered the immediate energy. But to really get where this whole roadmap is taking us, we have to look just a little bit ahead. The sources put a huge highlight on this shift coming 2 days later.
A massive foundational shift.
Saturn direct in Pisces. It starts November 27th, runs until February 14th. This is the engine, right? The thing that forces the transition from that slippery fantasy to a firm foundation.
This is, I think, the most crucial part of this deep dive. Saturn is structure, reality, boundaries, accountability. And it's been in Pisces, the sign of dreams, illusion, boundarylessness, since March of 2023. And since July, it's been retrograde. It's been forcing us to review where we've lacked integrity.
So Saturn retrograde in Pisces has been like a cosmic internal fog, like trying to build something solid while the ground keeps turning to mud under your feet.
That is a perfect analogy. And now, with the direct motion, that fog is lifting. The reality checks are unavoidable.
There's no hiding anymore.
None. The direct motion demands action, accountability, and finishing up all that emotional and spiritual business we've been reviewing. The main question for the next few months is, as the sources put it, what boundary will help me feel safe and aligned?
The clarity test that's implied here it's really intense. The sources say we can now see clearly whether the things we had faith in were actual visions with possibility or just a comforting fantasy.
And that's the tension. Saturn, which is reality, is demanding form from Pisces, which is dreams. That's what forces you to see the line between the two.
A vision has possibility, a fantasy doesn't.
Right. A vision with possibility is one you can anchor with structure, with integrity. A fantasy.
Well, fantasy is one that required you to consistently ignore red flags and outsource your authority just to keep believing in it. So if you've been trusting some promise that just felt too good to be true, Saturn Direct basically makes you look at the results. It makes you see where you gave your authority away to something with no substance.
And this process brings a clarity that is just. It's profound. It's undeniable. Those vague promises, the ones woven from smoke, like in the Elara story we'll get to, you see them for what they were. Empty.
Once that clarity hits,
you stop waiting. You stop waiting for things outside of you to change, and you start making firm, structure-based decisions. Action takes center stage.
What about that warning? That actions not aligned with the highest integrity or that lack of spiritual conscience will be tested? How does that test show up?
Saturn is the great tester of foundations.
Yeah.
If you take an action that benefits you on the surface but undermines your integrity or someone else's, if you build your new structure on shaky ethical ground,
it's going to crumble.
Saturn will apply pressure until that structure reveals its weakness and crumbles. This whole phase is about making sure that the tangible shapes our dreams are taking are actually sustainable and that they're ethically sound.
It's all about building for the long haul, which is huge because next February, Saturn shifts into Aries, and that kicks off a whole new 29-year cycle. So this integrity check right now is the final prep for that massive leap. You need clean, solid footing before you start a whole new race. And this is where the sources move from the technical to the metaphorical with the StoryScope Elara's journey. This makes everything we just talked about so concrete.
It really does.
She starts in that classic Pusheen confusion, right?
Yeah.
Wandering in a world that's soft around the edges, following dreams that just flickered out.
It's the perfect portrait of someone who lacks defined personal boundaries. She was waiting for the world to tell her that her dreams were real. And when it didn't happen, they just dissolved.
So what's the turning point?
The transition begins when her intuition, which had been, slippery, suddenly becomes steady. She stops relying on the outside world to define her reality.
And that clarity leads her to a physical manifestation of the boundary we're all needing, the line of returning light at the stone circle.
And we have to unpack the meaning of this line. The source is very specific about what the line wasn't.
Okay.
It was not a barrier to keep the world out in some defensive, fearful way. Instead, it was this illuminated mark to remind her where she ended and everything else began.
Wow.
I mean, that is the most profound definition of an integrated boundary I've ever heard. It's a self-defined perimeter that clarifies your own space, your own responsibility. It's not a wall built out of fear.
And kneeling beside this glowing line, Elara basically does her own personal Saturn direct clarity test. She sees all the places she gave her power away.
She saw the moment she handed her authority to, quote, sweet words that held no weight.
The promises woven from smoke.
That's it. The direct parallel to the fantasy. She realized she had been saying yes when her spirit had been whispering a very clear no.
That part about fear disguised as devotion. That's so critical. It suggests she was devoted not to the dream itself, but to the idea of the dream.
Yes,
Yeah.
even if it meant sacrificing her own integrity or her own intuition to keep it alive.
So the revelation was that her dreams weren't the problem.
Not at all. It was how she had allowed them to be shaped and defined by the shaky intentions of other people. And her heart expanded with this knowledge that, finally, genuine, aligned action could take form.
Supported by a conscience that felt, what were the words? Aligned, whole, and clean.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome gives us the ultimate promise of this whole Saturn direct period. Her dreams became foundations. They weren't fleeting hopes anymore. She learned how to protect them with that line.
And the final realization is just the mic drop for this entire deep dive.
Yeah.
Anything built from this place would stand. Anything done without integrity would crumble before it grew roots. You can't rush the structure.
Yeah.
You can't compromise your self-authority. If you build it clean, it will last.
Wow. What an incredible roadmap. We started with the immediate need for psychological release, moved through using objective detachment to face conflict, and landed on the fundamental requirement of Saturn Direct, building foundations rooted in integrity.
And if you synthesize all of that, the goal is crystal clear. It's about moving definitively from the vague, easily dissolved fantasy we once believed in to the clear, protected foundation we are now compelled to build.
It's about seeing where you outsourced your power.
And systematically taking it back.
And that shift demands action. We are warned that actions that are not in alignment with highest integrity are tested. So for you listening, think about the existing structures in your life. A financial plan, a key relationship, a long-held belief, something that feels vague or slippery or soft around the edges. What's one specific small action you can take this week to test its foundation against your highest integrity? Is it finally defining that line of returning light for yourself, drawing that boundary that reminds you where you end and everything else begins?
It's time to move the dream from the clouds down to the bedrock. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into such a powerful moment of transition.
We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.